So I was growing up, I had a really, really beautiful childhood and whatnot. I was really, really blessed with all that. But what really was my turning point was discovering when, like, coming to school one day and just noticing there was something wrong in the air, and someone at school had committed suicide that night before. And I was sitting with him the day before he died at lunch, laughing with him. And I had no idea how to process that. I think I was 17 at the time. And so that really kickstarted that whole drink to feel numb and surrounding myself around people that were encouraging of that as well. Because, we're all 17. We don't know how to process our feelings. So let's all get drunk together. Let's all go out and do drugs together and, see who's the last one standing and make a game of it and try to encourage each other just to push our limits with that. And then fast forward 2 years later, I actually had ended up losing 3 friends to suicide at this point. And then my mum got diagnosed with cancer. And again, I just did not know how to process that. My father at the time separated from my mum, and he was in his own shit, and he couldn't be the figure I needed him to be in that moment. And so I really, really felt lost. And I remember I actually attempted suicide myself. I'd gotten really, really drunk, a whole bottle of bourbon to myself, and tried drowning myself. And I'm so, so unbelievably grateful that that failed, because there was a moment when I was trying to drown myself when something clicked inside me of like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why am I allowing myself to get to this point in my life when everyone that has passed would not want that of me? I don't want that of me. I don't know how to process this, but I'm going to damn well try and find out. And that's what ultimately led me to learning about how addictions work and learning about the brain and, learning about depression and the different cycles of depression, and just starting to arm myself with knowledge that I can then apply to my everyday life and get better. If I can understand it, I can hack it. And that's been my philosophy ever since.
Thank you for being here, man. Thank you for allowing everyone to know your story, man. Know that struggle. I've been in that place of darkness as well, of this question like, fuck, do I even really want to be here? And then just to find that glimmer, that slither of hope of like, actually there is another way. A turning point for me is, well, the first turning point was my spiritual awakening. I was 27. I took too much gear and that kind of stuff. I've mentioned this on the podcast, and I ended up in a padded cell. And I had a vision, and it was really profound, of a different realm. So because of that, and I woke up in this padded cell in the full lotus, and I knew Buddhists do that. So I went down a path of studying Buddhism, and so over several years, I give up all of the recreational drugs, and I was addicted to ice, all that kind of stuff. And I started men's work and a little bit on and off. And so through men's work, I started to I still drank, and I was like you, very manipulative. I'm only going to have, and this was so funny, I remember saying, I'm only going to have 1 drink a day. I drank more then than when I didn't have like a restriction, because I found this glass that could put 3/4 of a bottle of wine into it. So I was going through 6 bottles of wine a week, and it was just crazy. And and what the fuck are you doing? Like, stop manipulating. And it was just, I'd find all of these ways, man. And it just had to be the point, like, actually, I've got to remove it. It's a demon for me. It is. And it was really interesting. The moment that I said alcohol has me, because I thought, if I say that, I'm going to lose my power. Like, this thing's bigger than me. But the moment I said it's bigger than me, I got my fucking power back. It was like crazy. I said, no, actually, because I'm saying this, fuck you. And so I'll get into some hacks and that kind of stuff of like how, and I know that you'll have some as well. But yeah, so I cleaned my act up, stopped all the gambling, stopped the prostitution. I stopped all of that, but alcohol was there, here and there. I had a couple of girlfriends between 27. Then I met my wife, which was 8 years ago. And same as you, man, had this big blow up, and I just didn't have the emotional intelligence to be with it. So I drove from the Sunshine Coast back down to Brisbane, caught up with all the old mates I used to knock around with. And then we went out, man, and I fucking blew myself out, just so drunk. And I ended up fucking around with one of my old mates. He pushed me, I fell over, cracked my skull. So I've actually lost the sense of taste and smell. But I'm starting to rewire it together. Dr. Joe Dispenza. So yeah, anyone that doesn't know, we'll put those put a couple of his things. So breaking the habit of being yourself and how to become supernatural. So we can rewire the stuff. So I'm starting to get it all back. Anyway, so I ended up in hospital and I woke up. I said, "What the fuck am I doing in here?" So I left and then got a heap of ice and just got on the flute. And then next thing, when that happened, I started like sort of spiritually wakening up. So I started ringing Melinda and all that kind of stuff. And she's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, just come home." And I'm like, so I was drunk, high, jumped in the car, and she was like, "Sleep it off and come home." But I'm like, "Fuck, I'm coming home now." I made it halfway, and her and her mum came down, and so I ended up pulling up at the BP on the side of the road, man, in my work ute. And I just remember falling asleep the whole way home. Got home to her house, and it was the same as you, man. It was the first time in my life that people other than my family showed me unconditional love. They brought me in closer. And it really was like, what the fuck? And then, yeah, so Melinda said, "Look, I want to be with you. I'm not going to break up with you, but you need to sort your shit out." Kicked me out because we were living together. So I went and slept on the mate's couch. And then that's when I'm like, well, fuck, where do I go as a man to seek help? And so I jumped on Google, psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm like, well, I don't want to get fucking medicated because I've seen what that can do. So I'm going to go see a psychologist. The first psychologist I saw was Dr. Paul McCormack. It was amazing, man. It was the first time I actually started talking about all this childhood trauma and being molested and all of the things that was compounding to all these addictions. And it was really beautiful. It got to a point though, he goes, "Mate, I can't help you anymore." And it was interesting. I share this a lot is because I still only told him about 70% of the truth because he never shared anything about him and his challenges and his struggles. So I still didn't fully trust him at my essence. And that's why when I found men's work was that extra 30%, where the people that I was very fortunate to be mentored with, like Jetty Zuma and Preston Smiles and Ryan Fontana, and these men were sharing all of their struggles. And so I was able to really open up and to be with all of that. But yeah, it was a really powerful woman and two women. So my wife and my mother-in-law that, yeah, brought me in closer rather than banishing me. And that's all I was craving, man. It's just craving love. So I was just doing it in such a reckless way. And so, yeah, that was my turning point, man. And that was a turning point to get help. And then alcohol still played a big fucking part of my life. And then, so I was going through these moments of like 3 months or 6 months sober, but in between these commitments, I would just binge drink. And yeah, it was maybe 6 years ago. No, it was less than that, maybe 5 years ago, because our oldest boy was about 1, so he just turned 6. So about 5 years ago, still battling with the demon of alcohol. We'd had a Barney, so I walked up the street and there's like the neighbours were all drinking in the yard and the kids were playing. So I went up there, and one of the ladies was a rep for a bourbon company. So she had all these little things of spirits, and she gave me a dozen of them. Just smashed, I was just drinking straight spirits. Went back home, and I woke up and I'd passed out underneath the office, the computer table, and I'd pissed in the laundry. And Minnie was my fiance, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what the fuck? Is this who you want to be?" And I was just like, and like you, man, and when you said your wife had the baby in the arms, she's like, "Your son's fucking asleep there. Can you imagine if he came out and saw you like this?" And that was me. That was like, "Fuck it, I'm out. I'm sober. I'm not drinking anymore." And that was that was the last time I got drunk. And that was over 5 years ago. And yeah, that was just, like blackout drunk. It was just, yeah. But it was that stern woman ultimatum. But for me, the biggest driver was just, no, I don't want my kids to see that.